We actually have gone through a slightly different journey. I'm sure we realized that business model needed complete fundamental change. The reason after Flipkart I did Udaan, because I loved e-commerce. Right? E-commerce in India is very complex, very large market. Everybody does the math, $1 trillion consumption, growing massively, very unorganized. That's why I never wanted to build for like the rich class. It just never appealed to me. In India, making large and profitable businesses takes time.
Most startups in India chase growth. Very few survive the discipline required to build real businesses. Today's guest has seen both sides, helping build Flipkart during India's e-commerce boom and now co-founding Udaan, a platform reshaping how millions of small retailers buy and sell. This is Vaibhav Gupta. Why did Udaan need a CEO?
We were too large as an organization. We need to build more structure. We cannot now run without a CEO. But I think we transitioned into a CEO model late. We've moved from a national supply chain to local supply chain, pretty much like a DMart and Walmart. We were earlier like a FedEx or an Amazon or a Flipkart. You don't ship a Delhi product, Delhi order from Bangalore. The math never works. The mental model of the organization needed to shift. So you can become $1 billion scale without quality. That big transition happened from kind of chasing scale to chasing quality, which then went into details and discipline and playbooks and focus and choices and people. And the first e-commerce big platform was eBay. That was the genesis of internet. Like Google and Yahoo was information of the world. Very few of the winners from 95 to 2015 of e-commerce became the winners in the grocery. Grocery is not a catalog business. People go to Walmart because Walmart sends the same potato cheaper than the other guy. If you say, I'm just going to scale the market first, and I think that has downside. That's capitally inefficient. It was a massive marketplace because that is who we are or who we were.
Bad decision?
In hindsight, yes.
What is that one thing that is occupying your mental bandwidth the most today?
There was this feeling in my head that when I grow old, I don't want to have regrets.
We love to do shoots whenever our guests want. So that was the whole idea, to finish the shoot before the office comes into work. When I was talking to your team, one thing that really stood out for me was that you wanted to do the shoot before the office comes to life.
Now, glad to be here, Sunny. I think one of the things I've realized is that the business we are in is a business of discipline. And we are, as we go and talk more, like the Udaan is focused on mass India. And mass India is a very large opportunity, but requires a lot of focus on execution, focus on cost. Teams need to be always thinking singularly about what's the most important thing. And to me, Udaan is going through big time in its journey, which is very important. Like we, post-COVID, we have really worked together to sort of find the answer. I think you can probably say that every entrepreneur it's always like, once okay, this is the answer, I don't want this to kind of anything to disrupt it. So there is a sense of that I want the organization to be very focused on execution, not distracted by anything.
Right. So, but while you do not want the organization to get distracted, what is that one thing that is occupying your mental bandwidth the most today?
I would say scaling the business model. We actually have gone through a slightly different journey. I'm sure all journeys are different. Uh, we as a platform scaled a lot pre-COVID. Um, and then we realized that business model needed complete fundamental change sort of from 21 onwards, which we executed on. And we built out a playbook of our business, which is now proven for its growth and profitability uh, in in a in a city of Bangalore. We are right now very focused as an organization to scale it pan India, right? So 100% of energy is like what we built out as a business model. As we scale to pan India, what is needed for that? It requires organizational scaling. It requires adjusting for like, India is not one India.
Correct.
Geographically it is very different, and economically and society there are so many tiers, right? uh, the opportunity we are is like pan India, but as we scale, it requires a lot of just details, right? And I think a lot of focus is on that details and that discipline as we scale up.
Right. You know, to continuously think and keep yourself wired into making this happen for your organization, does that mentally overload you? And are you able to understand if you get mentally overloaded sometime?
See, I think I joined Flipkart right from consulting, right? And I spent 5 years in Flipkart. It was the, you can say, for most of the Indian startup, it was kind of the starting company. It was also uh, sort of the start of e-commerce in the country. The reason after Flipkart I did Udaan, because I loved e-commerce, right? E-commerce in India is very complex.
It is.
It's a very complex business, very large market. Everybody does the math, which is true, by the way. $1 trillion consumption, growing massively, very unorganized, will get organized on uh, back of internet and digital. And one of the things which I loved the most about e-commerce was you do a lot of things and every day you get feedback. So you will track your business on a daily basis. And I think to me, that actually, I think for me personally, that is the reason why I find the fit with it. So I don't get, to me, everyday action, everyday results, everyday. Uh, so the daily nature of this business actually is exciting, and I think a lot of people at Udaan who do this business, most of the founding team of Udaan has been in e-commerce for 15 years now, like, and I think they love it as well. I think you have to love the business to actually do it, because it takes long times in India to build something of scale and profits.
So imagine you are at the airport, your flight is delayed by an hour, you're sitting at the lounge, and you start getting to talk to the person beside you. How would you introduce yourself?
I've shared this answer many times. Like, I'm trying to build a business in the country. It's called Udaan. This business is about uh, mass India, right? And it kind of goes back to why I started Udaan, right? When I was in US uh, and B school in consulting, uh, I think obviously, I started developing, like yourself. I'm from a business family. Growing up, we saw business conversations at the tables with my cousins wanting to start new businesses. Uh, Post business school and consulting, I was always wired to see what's there in the world. And the companies I got inspired the most were the companies like Costco's and Walmart. Uh, and why? Because if you lived in US or spent some time, you can see how integral they are to the daily life of every American. Like, and I think that's the that's the beauty about massive grocery businesses, because they become part of the daily life of a country, right? Just like, because that's the touch point and the frequency and the dependence. So if you build something like that, you can actually be part of India for like 100, 200, 500 years. And you actually can also change the, uh, have a real impact on the economy, on the society, because that's what I wanted to do, right? And that's why I never wanted to build for like the rich class. I have nothing against the rich class. It just never appealed to me. Always like what could impact the country at scale, what could impact
The
the
middle
country.
order.
Yeah. And to me, that's when people sort of ask me, I said, like, I'm trying to build this business Udaan, which is about the mass India. It's about the massive ecosystem and trade economy we have in this country, and how we can organize it, we can make it more efficient, and how we can create a large company which can sustain for 100, 200, 300 years as it is doing that. That's what I'm trying to do at Udan, and that's the conversation typically, and it depends on who is the person on the
Correct, of
other
course,
end
of
in
course.
terms of.
I would like to understand Vaibhav as a human more than a founder, an entrepreneur. So, how does help me understand how does a typical day for you look like? We did discuss a bit of it while you came in,
Yeah,
but yeah.
so I think I've got two kids, both boys. One is 12, one is 8. Um, the early part of the day, morning, is kind of spent with them. I would get them ready for the school, drop them at the bus. I think they have a lot going in their lives and they want to talk about it, and I think that's the time I get it with them. Weekends also tend to be a lot more with them, but post kind of that, uh, kind of get some exercise, go to the gym, come back. I generally get into the office around 8:15. Both from I like to start my day early as well as the Bangalore traffic, so you kind of have to adjust for that. And for me, uh, I think the weekly and the monthly calendar runs on a schedule. So we have, uh, I think we run our business in kind of uh, sprints. Every month is divided into 3 sprints. So we have like the first sprint, second sprint, and the third sprint. So the first 5 days of the month, 11 to 15, and the 21st to 25, tend to go in a lot of the business reviews, which happens.
So, first 5 days and then
So sprints are
15
10
days.
days. Sprints are 10 days.
Okay.
So every 10, so all businesses run on a 10-day sprint. And then we will review the sprint business by business once the sprint is over. So the first 5 days, 1 to 5th, 11 to 15th, or 21st to 25, tend to go into business reviews because we're reviewing the 10-day sprints of the business. So part of those days tends to be very review heavy. Uh, then typically almost uh, I try to make sure that every alternate week, if not every week, I'm able to go into one of the cities and spend some time with both the customers on the ground, sort of employees, as well as go into some of our vendors and suppliers, because our vendors, we deal with a lot of agricultural produce, like staples is a big part of our business. So we need to go and understand, uh, build our supply from kind of core supply clusters which are spread across the country. So that'll be part of the travel, right? And I think generally I'll probably um, get done by about 8-ish in the office, head back, uh, and then the investor base at Udaan is a little bit broad, both in terms of folks in India as well as Europe and US. So uh, once a week, and like it's a bit informal, we kind of catch up with some of the folks at different time zones about kind of how the business is going. So this is the normal
Correct.
routine. I think now this normal routine obviously gets overlaid by almost over the past 5 years. No single month doesn't have like a big thing happening, so you kind of are working through that as well.
Do you wish you had more time to spend with your family?
I think kids, both of my kids have grown up with Udaan. So they kind of, I don't think they ever had a pre-Udaan version of me.
Same
So
here.
they never feel that
Yeah.
something is off. Uh, and, uh, and the good thing is, see, uh, growing up as a kid and as well as in college, I used to be a lot more in sports, and now my kids like a lot of sports, so I'm able to spend time with them. They know that I'm playing with them. I'm spending so they don't feel that off, and I think that gives me a way to connect with them as
What sports do you play with them?
Oh, I think obviously cricket is there. Like kind of all of us have grown up with that. But for me, I play badminton quite. I think now as we're getting a little bit older, I'm trying to get into the rhythm with that. Um, and then basketball. I used to play that for my college, so I think those are the pastimes. I think more cricket and badminton. Basketball is still not that big in the country.
Very interesting. The two games that I have chosen for my daughter after consultation with her, now my daughter is 7 year old, is badminton and basketball.
Okay.
My reason for badminton and basketball was badminton allows you to shine as an individual. Basketball teaches you team to build in a team or work as a team. So these were my
I
reasons.
think the key word was consultation with her.
Ye- yes, yes. So I don't think that in my time everything was, you, I tell you, you do it.
Yeah.
Nowadays there is a lot of whys that come from children,
Yes.
and without consultation I think it's
Yeah.
tough.
I'm trying to figure out kind of. I don't think me and my wife we have not figured kids yet out.
Well, same here, same
It's
here.
just we
I'm
just
trying to learn as much as they are trying to learn.
every day we kind of questioning ourselves what's right.
Right.
The world has changed. What will be right? It's weird. I don't know yet. I'm still like there's so many doubts in our heads as parents, and when we talk to kind of the parents of all of our like kids friends who kind of are around, it's the same story.
Same story.
Everybody's sort of wondering how much to how much to discipline, how much to not, how much to push and uh, something on them versus how much of their own choice. It just is not clear.
Right. Let's talk about your childhood then. Um First memory as a child, 3 years, 4 years of age. Do you have any?
So I think my mother tells it, and I obviously I also remember it. Um, this was the first day my parents were taking me to uh, school. I've never been to school, so this was like maybe when I was 2.5 years old or something and they were taking me to a school uh, to get me admitted into nursery. And I remember that my dad used to have a moped, and my mom was carrying me, and I was sitting behind in her lap. The moment I realized my dad took a turn towards the school, I jumped off the moped. Right, and I just jumped onto the road, and my parents fell. And I still remember that day because I never wanted to go to the school. And my
Okay.
mom also remembers it. Like so, I think I was. That's the probably the very early memory. It doesn't go very fast and all.
Yeah.
And like a 2.5 year, like, but they fell and we all fell. And then my dad got really angry and it's like, you have to go to the. I'm going to get you to the school, and then
Okay.
he did get me to the school. After that, I grew up in Rohtak, small town, uh, very very small, very, and grew up in joint family.
Business family?
Yeah, means I think you can say a combination of business and service. My grandfather actually came from, he was, if you know, the there used to be things called cooperative societies.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Of
And they
course.
still are. So
Of
my
course.
grandfather worked in those, but then when as my uncles, my tayajis and my chachajis, they started kind of their sort of kind of careers. Some of them went into business, some of them into service. So I think we had like equal of them. Like three of them went into business, three of them were in service.
Does money what did money represent in your family? Was it security? Was it ambition? Was it abundance? What did it represent?
See, and I'm assuming you're talking about kind of the early family, like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I was growing up.
Yeah, what when you were growing up?
Yeah.
7, 8,
Yeah.
class 7, 8, 9, 10, when you
See,
start understanding money.
see, when we were a joint family, but we were, you can say, quintessential middle class family. Uh, and there was not a lot of, now obviously I can talk about it now, there was not a lot of um, generational wealth at all, right? All, so I think my dad and my charges, they were trying to build their wealth themselves. Like they were trying to find answers for their careers and their wealth themselves. And I think when we were growing up, we were seeing that. So I think it was always that sense that uh, there is nothing there for you. You have to do it. You have to build it yourself. So there was always a sense of uh, if you did not uh, find it yourself, you will not have anything.
Does that do something with your relationship with money? As in, how do you see money? I'm asking you this question, and let me put that in context. A lot of youngsters today are looking at startups as a means to become millionaires fast. Uh, I personally disagree with that thought process.
I'm a reasonable believer in capitalism. Reasonable believer. I think the basic principle that uh, you work hard uh, with discipline, focus, give hard work, and if you take risks, you should get returns. And I think over long periods of time across large number of people, when you look at that pattern, I think that's true. I believe in that. So my sense is that startups do have tend to have a little bit on the extreme of risk and return. So definitely, uh, from a capitalistic point of view, if someone wants to get if someone wants to get rich, yeah, you can take higher risk and you will have higher return. But I think that's one side of the story, which is the return side. It has its own risk and timeline associated with it. My sense is what I've also learned is uh, because I've seen a lot of people from Flipkart, even from Udaan, uh, who have left and but were like predominantly centered about kind of the money aspect of it. I think there is more to it, more to a startup than that. My sense is in India, uh, uh, making large and profitable businesses uh, takes time because India is a low GDP per capita economy. Uh, so, and especially with internet, there is a very, it's easy to get users and subscribers because we have 1.5 billion of them and everybody can come easily. But we have low uh, um, consumption powers, which reflects in almost everything,
Everything.
like
Everything.
ARPUs, AOVs, and others ways. Um, Driving profits in India takes time. Um, so when my general thing to whenever kind of people from anybody who comes to me and saying, uh, I I say that you need to be into this for a long period of time, at least 10 plus years, to be really able to see the returns you're hoping to see.
Correct.
So to me in India, I think the time aspect is a lot more. I believe that the Flipkart story of Sachin Benny and few others really inspired a lot of people.
True.
And I think for the rightful reasons. Having said that, India is an open internet economy,
True.
right? It's not like a closed internet,
correct.
right? It's an open internet economy. And I think the first wave of uh, kind of the internet-driven opportunities have gone through. So now anybody who's starting something has to really go deep into finding the math at a value chain level, not just at an like kind of I just go online, get subscribers by, and I will have a business. I think that model is gone. So to me, I do believe that uh, India still, as a country, is large, unorganized economy, developing fast on back of tech likely. Uh, so there are a lot of opportunities for people to build companies, and I think it's probably last 10 years and the next 20 years are the years where companies of future of India will be created. But I think it takes time. It takes time.
Not every employee has the appetite to become an entrepreneur. Uh, it requires a lot more to make that shift. You were in a company which was the poster boy of the startup ecosystem, Flipkart. It was doing fairly well, and it when you moved on, what were you actually walking away from when you moved from Flipkart to start Udaan?
Oh, it was a complex and tough decision, and I'm sure everybody who starts up goes through that. Um, Flipkart, in many ways, uh, was an important part of my journey. There was this feeling in my head that when I grow old, I don't want to have regrets, and that I should have done something. And that feeling was always there, even when I was at Flipkart. But Flipkart was in a huge momentum, so I think uh, so that feeling was there. 2015, when I kind of took sabbatical, I told Sachin Bini that I want to take some time off to really figure out what I want to do. Do I want to stay here or do I want to do something else? And I took actually a sabbatical, and I spent time. My wife was at that time in Seattle, so I sort of went to Seattle. Um, Spent almost 5 6 months kind of thinking through, and that feeling became very real. It was very clear that, you know, they'll, unless I actually go after and do something, I'll always have that sense. Um, and then I kind of, that's where, to me, and I think I would say, what Flipkart did enable is a couple of things. It did enable uh, the ability to see something big can happen very quickly. Like, when you see something of your own, like you see something in front of you, you get a little bit more uh, 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 open about kind of taking
Also
that.
builds your conviction.
Yep, builds conviction, right? And um, that feeling was always there. So I think that finally led me to sort of start Udaan.
What takes an employee to become an entrepreneur? Is there a definitive list of things, like three, four, five, six, seven of them?
My sense is, like, I think the answer applies to anybody. I don't think it's
Of
an
course.
employee versus anybody. The answer applies.
Okay, that way.
Anybody. Like, you come across people who are always sort of, their brain is always working like, oh, this could happen, this could become big. This is the problem. This is what customers want. This is what an opportunity in the country. They are generally uh, uh, optimist about future. They believe that something new can actually become very big.
Right.
Uh, they all have a sense of that uh, little bit of reality distortion, like whatever goes in their head, they're able to sort of put it onto the put it onto to the world. I think those are the initial characteristics of an entrepreneur. But I do believe there is a big journey from an entrepreneur or an idea to uh, a business organization, large successful companies, and I think those are the ones which are where people have to change, uh, and I think that's where a lot of things happen. Like a lot of people are good at sort of, okay, I know this is something which somebody wants, and that somebody really wants it. It doesn't exist in the world, but from their building organization, business, companies, I think that's another journey.
Correct. Correct. Uh, do you have any mentors from your Flipkart days, Sachin, Bini, or people who came in later like Kalyan or any of them?
Yeah, means I think I learned a lot from, I would say, both Sachin and Kalyan actually. I think Sachin to me continues to be amongst the people who I have seen through my last 15 years, very uniquely gifted to be able to see uh, what users of a product really want, what is their real need, and what they are willing to trade off for that. I think he's amongst the very gifted people on that, what consumers or what users really need. Uh, I think I think a lot of my learning about e-commerce as a business, uh, I think a lot of the early learnings came from Kalyan. I think he he has his unique superpower to make things happen, to be able to drive fast-paced businesses, uh, uh, make them big, and I think that's kind of where I learn um, from Kalyan, and continue to be in quite a bit of touch with Kalyan. I go back to him once in a while about things. We don't discuss business because there are obviously overlaps about the businesses. So, but I think a lot of things I learned from him. I think more recently, I think over the last 5 years, though, I believe that I've tried to go back into the playbooks of DMart, of Walmart, of Costco, because that has become more relevant
Correct. Correct.
for Udaan
I was
now.
about
Like,
to get there.
because now, see, grocery is a different piece, right?
Yes.
And while Flipkart gave a lot of the learnings around e-commerce and internet and India, uh, but I think grocery is a complete environment shift, a mental model shift, and I think
What would that be? What is that mental model shift from?
it's in many ways, right? Means you know, um, if you look across the world, right, uh, and it's kind of getting into a little bit into the e-commerce and maybe a geeky version of me, but you will, because you will
Please.
see where I enjoy it. If you look at e-commerce across the world, uh, late 95 to 2000 is where kind of the first e-commerce big platform was eBay
True.
across the world, right? And it was a marketplace where you can find anything in the world, right? Because that was the genesis of internet. Like Google and Yahoo was information of the world. Everybody can access it. So this internet sort of disruption in the world, that earlier information was hard to get. Now everything about the world was available to you, right? So eBay started on back of that, which is saying that everything in the world which you wanted to find, be it a coin or be it a shoe or be it a book or be it a chips making machine, go to eBay and you can find it, or jewelry or something, and will disrupt the commerce the way it happens. I think fast forward that to kind of the 2000 to 2010, or even 2000, in many ways till 2015, that e-commerce scaled across the world, but was very focused on categories which are discretionary categories.
Correct.
Because those are the categories where range, selection matters. Like all the
Large catalog.
like your clothes and my clothes and issues are all different.
Correct.
Right, but we'll end up eating pretty much the same rice, potato, and
Correct.
so all the categories where ranges mattered, right? And new designs, new products with fast life cycles, because that's where that core nature of internet really helped. And to me, 2010 to 15, we saw Amazon, we saw Alibaba, we saw JD.com, Pinduoduos, when we saw various versions of Mercado in Latin America, companies in Europe. They were all in that discretionary large catalog made available, right? And sort of leveraging that power of internet. But if you look forward from kind of the 2015 onwards, when kind of grocery started, very few, and you can count them on the numbers, of the winners from 95 to 2015 of e-commerce became the winners in the grocery-led e-commerce, right? Very few, not like if you broadly look at, I want you to take the names, but all the big companies of that time are not the top 3 grocery player in any country, right, of e-commerce, right? And to me,
Despite
them being the largest
and putting the financial muscle,
because they were the largest
distribution muscle, everything.
They had the largest traffic base, they had the largest visitor base, they had the largest supply chains, they had the capital, they knew e-commerce technology, like all of that. And I think at core it is because grocery is not a catalog business. Grocery is a cost business and a value business. Because people go to Walmart because Walmart sends the same potato cheaper than the other guy. It's not the potato is different, it's the same potato is cheaper, or same Colgate is cheaper than the other. Same with DMart, like DMart sells the same biscuits cheaper than the other person. It's not the catalog which is different. So most of these companies which were 95 to 2015, these companies and these organizations were built around range. Massive range, national supply chain networks, right? How the organizations were wired. Like how we were wired when we came out of Flipkart. Like the first version of Udaan was, we want to get everything in India in trade onto Udaan. That was the first version of kind of the pre-COVID version of Udaan. It was a massive marketplace because that is who we are, or who we were.
Bad decision?
In hindsight, yes, and we changed that through kind of post-COVID. But I think when it comes to grocery, it's not about a million SKUs. Like a DMart probably carries in a store 5,000-6,000 SKUs, and a modern trade store carries probably 3,000. Your dad's shop in Ranchi at that time would have carried 1,500,
1,200 SKUs. Yeah.
It's not the assortment is not the differentiation. What is the differentiation is how do you build the value in the value chain? How do you reduce your cost and give better quality? Can you give better quality of rice in Bangalore? Can you give better quality Sona Masuri at a lower price than the other person? Right.
You know Sona Masuri.
So to me, that's the paradigm where organizations who grew up in those 20 years, it's very hard for them to change. Like all of us, right? It's hard for change. We kind of become who we are, what journeys we go through. And I think grocery takes a mental model shift. Like we as an organization, pre-COVID, pre-21 organization was very different than the post-21 organization. We let go the marketplace DNA. We let go the national supply chain DNA. We let go the range DNA. We came into very focused on cost and value. Like, how do I have a targeted assortment? How do you build high density at a city level? How do you lower cost? How do you actually give the price at profit? How can you sell a 50 rupee kg or a 45 rupee kg Sona Masuri to retailer or to a or an R&R or a tur dal at lower price than the market trader or APMC yard and still make money, right, into that trade? Like, what does it take? And I think that DNA is very different than the kind of the first version of internet e-commerce, right? That's kind of is the journey for us.
Right. So, coming out of Flipkart, you feel, and I would assume that you would feel that you have seen a lot of things at scale, right? Building from scratch to huge scale. Somewhere deep inside you, as an entrepreneur, your conviction is so high that you would think that very unlikely for me to fail or go wrong. But when you had to reset, did it create self doubt?
Actually, it never occurred.
Never. Okay.
And to me, it's the framing. Um, and I think it's a framing is different. Uh, I think at Flipkart and even uh, Udaan and bunch of other companies over the last 15 years. I think when people and I think I know most of the founders either directly and have been close to some of the journeys. When like folks from outside sort of say that you guys are just burning capital to grow, right? While there is a truth to that, but I think that's not all of it. It's not like that that the founders are not aware of things to be sold, things to be solved. They are aware of like what has to be solved. I think it's always in their head that yes, there is a sense that as I continue to scale, I will solve those things. Right? Even in Flipkart, we were clear when we were scaling that we have not yet figured out the P&L. It was not that we have figured out the P&L. So coming into Udaan, it was not like we were like, okay, we have already figured out profit-making machines. It was like, okay, yeah, we can scale, but we have to figure out a business. So I think, to me, most founders, at least I've seen, I don't think people start saying, oh, I know the answer. They have a sense that, okay, this is could be a big market. I think we started in Udaan, it's like, oh, this is the largest market in India, and we believe it's going to be an e-com answer, but we don't know the answer. So I don't think there was, when we pivoted, there's like, oh, gee, oh, it's easy to, in many ways, it's easy to pivot because we never started with an answer. So we're always in the search of what is the answer. So to me, that has never been a sense that we failed, or it was always that, oh, we took so much time to get to this. We should have taken less time to get to this, because we're always in that search of finding the answer. I think the regrets tend to be more in the sense of, why did we take so much time? Or why did we do this? Should have done this earlier. Those kind of things.
Interesting. Interesting. Before Flipkart, you were with McKinsey.
Yes.
Consultants tell businesses what to do. As an entrepreneur, you become an operator where the decisions you take end up becoming consequences. How did that shift happen for you at an individual level?
See, I joined McKinsey right out of B school. I think I loved every single person I was working with. It was just unusually bright and smart people you work with. It also, to me, gave a very top-down exposure of US capitalism in the context of large corporates, like how large corporates think, how they think about building a new business, how they think about capital allocation, what are their problems, how do they think about organization. Very high end, like very top down view of it. What I struggled with in consulting personally was depth. I always felt that we were rushing through a problem. Rushing, like if we client had asked us, okay, what do I do with this business, or if I want to grow. So let's say a client has asked that I want to grow or I want to reduce my cost. I felt that we were rushing through the answers, and that was my personal feeling. I always was lacking the depth into that. And to me, Flipkart actually happened by largely unplanned. Although, like when I was at B school, I really loved financial theory, capital markets theory, and I was heading to a hedge fund after McKinsey.
Right.
So I spoke to some of the, like through my networks, school networks, my professors. I spoke to a fund in Chicago which used to do options trading, and I was like, okay, that is probably where I can go deep and sort of kind of on a topic I really like. I was visiting uh, my parents in 2010 December for Christmas, and I came to Bangalore because prior to B school I used to work in Bangalore in a company called Trilogy as a software engineer. So I came here to meet some of the friends, and oh, somehow like one of them told me, or somebody pinged like, okay, uh, uh, I'm going to meet Sachin. He has started something. Sachin was a junior of mine from IIT Delhi. So I said, okay, I'll come along. So, and he was at his small office at BMC in Koramangala. We went there, and I like spent 30 minutes. He was telling me what he's doing. It was 2010. They were mostly selling books at that time. Um, I think he was selling about 150 books a day, and he was very excited about what he was doing. And when I sat across the table, and we were generally chatting how's life, and because we met after a long time, uh, and I could see that now there is something going on. I saw a little bit of myself in Sachin, and I said like, okay, it stayed in my head. I went back to US, and I was thinking, okay, let me go leave consulting. And then Sachin pinged me like, I'm looking for folks to join. And by the way, we're doing 1,000 books a day now. And that was
And 100 books to 1,000
for
books,
like
how?
6 months or less than that.
6 months.
Then he connected me to Lee, and I spoke to Lee, and then I could see that there is something which is happening, and I was that meeting initially with
So
Sachin.
Tiger had invested by then.
Yeah, I had invested by that time. That was 2011 early, so they had invested.
Lee, yes.
Yeah. So I met. Then I was like, something about kind of that conversation stayed on with me, and I said, okay, why don't I do this for some time? My wife was studying at that time. She was in Cornell, so she was like, do whatever you want to do. I'm anyway here, so it doesn't really matter to me. You are in US or somewhere else. So that's how I kind of came to Flipkart, very unplanned. But I do believe that the depth you get as an operator uh, is as a good operator in a good
Of course.
organization. I think is definitely one downside of consulting. But I think there are places where even in Udaan or in Flipkart, I have worked with consultants, because I think there are problem statements where you need uh, that wider view. You need very
Correct.
quickly a wider, very efficient way of sort of broadening, like from a very big set of options, you want to say, okay, here is this. Now I'm going to go deep into that. So I think
Take me back to the exact place where Udaan began. And we are not talking about the pitch deck, or I'm not talking about the date of incorporation. Um, can you paint the room, the moment, the conversation where you, Sujit, and Amod decided together that let's do this?
yeah, it means there's a little bit of a story on that. Amod and Sujit visited me when I was in my sabbatical in US in Seattle. So they came over. They both had transitioned out of Flipkart in 2015 while I was in sabbatical. So they were thinking what to do with their kind of lives. We had a bunch of time at our hand. None of us were doing active jobs. So we said, let's take a road trip. So we kind of went to Vegas and then we were taking a trip down to LA. So we hired a car and we were just driving through. And I think we were like having about, I think a 5-6 hour journey. That's kind of on that road trip we sort of started talking, okay, let's start something new. What do we want to start? What is more important? And then we said like, that's kind of is that 5-6 hours we started, okay, let's three of us work together to start something. And then from there we kind of took on to the idea.
If I'm not wrong, Udaan's mission is to transform the retail industry by connecting smaller retailers to suppliers, manufacturers, and so on, and also to help them with a whole host of services like credit, logistics, so on and so forth. Why do startups need to always have a mission?
I think in the context of Udaan, we never thought about it that seriously. I think my sense is it's I think it's less about the word mission in my head. My sense is generally going back to one of the earlier questions you were asking that people want to start because they want to get rich, and I was saying that yes, that is definitely a part of startup journey, but it takes time. And my sense is that you can put time and you can get another 500 or 1,000 people to put that much time and effort when there is a meaningful purpose behind. People can engage with that. Right? It's very hard to just put that time and energy, and because you have to put a lot of discretionary energy and you have to get another set of 500 people to put that discretionary energy.
Correct.
Right? And I think to me, humans need that something more, and you yourself need that something more, right? And I've seen that in my journey that somewhere over the last few years, I can't pinpoint exactly, the ambition changed into responsibility. Like I used to think about like, here is my ambition to build something like Udaan, and I think it has transitioned like it's my responsibility to build something like Udaan, because it kind of matters to a country like ours where you have this 100 million farmers, you have this 25-30 million small businesses, retailers, manufacturers, and we are a country which is very different in terms of our structure. How can technology change the country now? So it kind of transitions into that. And to me, I believe that I think at least I believe that value investors, or kind of the Silicon Valley, which still tends to be a lot of the learnings from high growth startups have come, is that when the founders or the founding team have this sense of the bigger impact of what they're trying to do and are clearer about that, they tend to be more successful over long periods of time. And I think that's why kind of some of the kind of best practice sharing which happens within more experienced VCs and experienced founders, you tend to see these patterns of, yeah, you want to become a big business, but what is more than that? Because sometimes you need that. In Udaan also, we have times where we have seen that.
How is a purpose, a mission different from finding a gap?
See, I think finding a gap or finding a customer need and solving for that, I think is almost the most important thing. Like, I think getting to a customer need and a problem and proving that this is a very large problem for a large number of customers, and now I'm going to do something about it, and being very genuine about it, I think is the most important thing in terms of I've seen so many patterns, at least in my journey and what I see outside. If you have a real customer need and that market is large, there is a high chance you will be successful. Either
Correct.
if the market is not large, is one reason you, or there's no real customer need. But
Right.
as long as two of them are, and you put time behind it, the chances go very, very high
Of being
for
successful.
being successful. Uh, my sense is that is almost very important to build a good business or a good product or a good service. But I
True.
think from a good business, maybe it takes like 8 years or 10 years to build a good business, or a 5 or 7, depending upon what. But from a business to a organization or a company which is going to last for 200 years,
An institution.
an institution, I think is those pieces which start mattering a lot more. Because once you have become a business, right, you can be profitable, and I think there are a lot of businesses which are 25-30 years profitable then die. Like, what do you then, what is that sort of some of those core directional choices you make as a business? Yeah, I think that's where it makes a big difference.
Right, right. Coming back to ambition versus responsibility, uh, when Udaan began, it didn't have a formal structure of a CEO, a chief operating officer, a CPO, some things like that, right? But fast forward a few years, it required a CEO, and you are the CEO of the company. What did not work, or what was broken in the old structure, and why did Udaan need a CEO?
I think at that point of time, that was the best structure, because we started with a big opportunity, and we started with an idea that there has to be an e-com answer over here. Let's find that answer. We didn't start with an answer. We started with an openness about so we were experimenting a lot at that point of time. So speed was high, experimentation was high, and people were that org structure worked very well. And I think the first 2-3 years, we were able to prove one strong thesis, which is still very important today, is that shopkeepers in India will adopt online buying. Like that pre-Udaan, that was a question mark. Like pre-2015, 16, that was a question mark. Will shopkeepers ever buy online? Everybody is saying that people have their relationships built over ages. They will not buy online. But I think the first 3 years of Udaan proved that, shopkeepers will buy online as long as you actually give them reliability, and we can talk about that. Um, my sense is when we went through COVID, one of the realization which happened for three of us as well as for the board is that we've become too large. Like when we started, we were like probably 30 people in 2016, 2017, 50, 100 people in 2017, 200 people in 2018, 19. We were that kind of scale. But as we were exiting COVID 2020 and 21, we were 5,000 people. We were very large. We have brought in next level of organization structures with CFOs, CHROs, and we had an executive team out there as well, and org structures were functional, and business org structures were reporting into those executives.
Just trying to build context to the size of the organization, to the size of the business. How many retailers were you serving?
Yeah, so we like very early on, obviously we were small. We were in Bangalore, Mysore, and but by the time we went to 2020, we were in almost 500 plus towns. Monthly retail shopkeepers were close to 500,000, and we had about 5,000 employees, and we had another close to 10,000 people on ground. So we scaled up very fast through that period. So org also scaled up. And when the COVID, the whole transaction happened, like 3 rounds of COVID, 3 waves of COVID, there were two big realizations for three of us as well as a board. One, that we were too large as an organization to not have
Bloat.
not have a bloat is the second part of it. But at an executive level, we need to build more structure. We cannot now run without a CEO. And second was that we also had to get very clear about the scale and adoption of B2B model was proven at that point of time. Scale and adoption was proven. Everybody believed the size of the market. What we proved was adoption. But the big question mark, which was yet out there, was, how do you drive profitability in this business? Because it was always going to be a relative to retail, it will be a lower gross margin business. I think steady state margin are probably about 9 to 10% versus retail, which tends to be like in the 20% plus zone. How would you drive profitability? And I think that question was unanswered at that point of time, right? And it required a lot of strategic choices to be made. So when we were at very large scale and we had to answer sort of some of the strategic choices, at that point of time, I think it was the right time, we started talking about like, we guys have to be, instead of now, the first phase of Udaan was very experimentative, everybody trying their own ideas and sort of putting on that, like scaling that. How do we actually become more focused in terms of, how do we move forward? We engaged a professional consulting firm out of Valley, who has helped in kind of org structure transitions. We spent time with them, our investors, our executive team spent time with them. We spent almost 9 months sort of working through what is the right answer for the organization. And so from there, kind of the choices are like, we should move into a CEO structure. I think this is the right time for us. So we transitioned that.
Were you apprehensive of it?
At least to me, it was very clear that we had to make that change for Udaan to be successful. And I think I still believe, and I've seen now even like many startups start like few people come together with very fluid roles, even like many of them. I think starting up, to me, I think that's a fairly good structure. But I think we transitioned into a CEO model late. I think we should have transitioned a little bit earlier. Like, so starting off was right, but I think we were too big. And so it almost became, you have to do it, because the answer was so clear in our sort of faces. But I think to me, it was the right decision.
Now, do you have the answer to profitability?
Absolutely. I think
the path is clear. You know that the path of profit.
So if you look at, what we have taken, this goes back to it. Like, I think you have heard this many times. Retail is about detail, and I think it's very true, by the way, right? But wholesale is about detail and discipline. If retail is about detail, wholesale is about detail and discipline, right? And to me, I think it required a massive change in the mindset. Obviously, we took large strategic choices. We moved from marketplace to a first-party business. We've moved from a national supply chain to local supply chain, pretty much like a DMart and Walmart. We were earlier like a FedEx or an Amazon or a Flipkart in terms of our supply chain. We moved to more like a DMart or a Walmart.
And what's the difference between these two?
Imagine if you have to build a supply chain, look like a FedEx supply chain. FedEx supply chain will have connectivity all over the world. They will have big transport lanes of either planes or railways or transports or road transports. There will be like these transport centers, and then there will be last mile sort of courier points, and you will collect points from couriers, feed into transport center. Transport centers will travel the product, go back into the courier and last mile to deliver. Those supply chains are designed for range-led, very range-heavy categories, national, like you want to have a big, massive warehouse of Amazon in North India, which is serving pretty much almost all of the country, right? So these are national sort of supply chains. But the moment you go into grocery, the supply chains change. You're basically having DCs. You don't have transport centers. You have DCs which are serving a 40, 50 kilometer radius, right? You don't go outside of that. You keep selection for that. You don't ship a Delhi order from Bangalore. The math never works sense. So your chains are more spread out. You build more distribution supply chain versus sort of courier supply chains. So we changed that supply chain.
Okay.
We singularly focused on grocery. Pre that we were like an open marketplace, any multi-category sort of marketplace. So we made those strategic choices, but also I think the mental model of the organization needed to shift into detail, into playbooks, into discipline. Like how do we build an organization which is going to build a playbook and then execute that playbook almost like a machine, right? The pre COVID version of Udaan, how do you test new ideas?
Correct.
New ideas every day, new like on a broad internet platform. So we kind of moved into that journey through the last kind of 5 years, and I think we took in that we have to build that playbook. And I think it takes time in India to build playbooks. I believe if you have to build a successful playbook, we took in Bangalore city, and we said in Bangalore we're going to build a model of growth, market share, and profitability. That we are able to grow consistently, right? In Bangalore, over the last 3 years, we're growing about 35% annually on a consistent basis over the last 36 months, right? We are going to gain market share with a competitive advantage, right? Shopkeepers in Bangalore, they would tell you Udaan is the most reliable, Udaan has the best selection, Udaan has the lowest prices. The vendors in Bangalore, the millers who serve this area will say Udaan is the most dependable channel. Udaan gives me consistent growth and high transparency and good payment, right? And so we have a clear competitive advantage. We're growing, in 3 years, we have grown our market share in Bangalore every single month. And profitability. Our Bangalore city is EBITDA profitable, covering for all costs, fixed and variable, and EBITDA is growing quarter over quarter. So we built that clear playbook in Bangalore. And I think to me, in India, at mass grocery, like if you look at the tiers of India's consumption, you have affluent, you have like value, and you have mass,
Correct.
right? Value kind of what I call as a DMart space, affluent I call as kind of the more modern trade quick com space, and mass, which is the bottom 80% of India, is kind of the kirana space. I think we are the only player which has a business model which which has consistent sustainable growth, strong competitive advantage, and clear profitability, right? And the market is very large. Now we are rolling out this playbook across cities. So I think for us, all the work we did around last 4 years to really be very focused on the details, on the discipline, and sort of putting that into the organization has now clearly sort of proving out for us.
What is a playbook? But I have my own version of it. But what is your version? Is it more a philosophy, or is it a real system, or is it a framework?
Oh, I think to me uh, it is very detailed, right? If I refer to um, our business has different sub pieces to it. For example, if we go into a city, uh, what assortment we will carry in that city, right? Now, how do we identify that as an assortment? Like, every city could have in Bangalore itself, there are about 3 to 4 thousand different grades of rice, pulses, flour in place. There are about 25, 30,000 different SKUs of FMCG in Bangalore, right? But you have to be very sharp about what assortment you're going to carry and why you're going to carry.
Correct.
So we have built a basic set of framework, like when you go into a city, how you actually do a market recce, right? How do you collect that data? How do you make a decision on that data? So that it is not like, okay, you go to a city and you decide the assortment. There's a clear sort of decision framework around this is the information need, these are the types of customers to go. You need to go to so many class A customers, so many class B, so many class C. You need to go to so many wholesalers. You need to get this from the Nielsen data. When you do these analysis, we need to understand what are the price points and quality. Where do we actually make the choices? So there is a clear documented way in which assortment in every city is going to get decided, right? And then a training happens for the people who are going to do that, so that you actually know that the training is close to what you intend, right? So this is a playbook around assortment. Now, obviously, it goes through a level of detail further. Then there is an assortment, the playbook around pricing. Like how do you price in a market? What data you collect? We collect data from wholesale markets. We collect data from retailers. We collect online competitive data. That data collection happens 3 times a day. There is going to be a meeting and a review. What we will look into that meeting and review is again laid out. Who will make those decisions? Where would escalation go to? When you get a market feedback from a customer or a salesperson, what information and documents they have to submit? What is the, if they submit an invoice, what should be the integrity of that invoice? Is that a valid invoice or not? Again, rules around that. So you capture that at a detail level. Similarly, you go into supply chain. What is the playbook around where we will hire drivers from? What should be the qualifying criteria for drivers? What should be the qualifying criteria for loaders? What is the payment for pickers? How do we solve for fraud? So if you execute this business at every single level, you need to go to the details and codify that everything. I think the big important thing in India, and I think this is I've learned at a distance from DMart, is that we need to, any system which is operating in mass grocery has to build it at that level of detail so that you can get ordinary people to create extraordinary results. Otherwise, cost structures will never work. If you actually have to pay a lot of money for people, you will never be able to solve the cost structures needed. So it's important that you build these very detailed playbooks,
Right.
so that you can get very, very sort of resources at a lower cost, but still deliver
the right output,
deliver
or
the right
perhaps
output.
better than what you
So
desire.
to me, this was never our DNA 5 years ago.
Of course.
This was, and this to me is the DNA of playbooks now.
How do you know that this playbook is right versus it's merely working?
See, I think to me, the final validation only happens with time. That's where you asked me, right? To me, a validation of business is that business over longer periods of time in a competitive environment can create profits and returns over its cost of capital. That's kind of is the only validation, right? So to me, validation of our playbooks is that in Bangalore or in any other city, am I in a competitive environment? Yes, I'm in a competitive environment, right? Do I believe that I'm growing? Yes, I am growing. Do I believe my customer dependency is increasing? I look into the rates of customer repeat rates. Do I believe vendor dependency is increasing? I look at vendor share of the wallet. Do I believe my profits are increasing?
Right.
Right. And I believe that this is replicable city by city, market by market. To me, and over long periods of time, I am seeing that final profitability over my cost of capital. So to me, that's the only validation of whether or not your playbooks are working. I think anything pre that is only, yes, I'm heading in the right direction. Only when you know that I have a certain cost of capital as a business, am I generating returns in a competitive environment over long periods of time while I'm growing. Because that's only like any value we associate in a capitalistic economy is, can you give me returns over cost of capital?
Correct.
And can you grow those returns?
Correct.
To me, that's the only justification,
Correct.
only validation. I think at Udaan, we have proven that very emphatically in a core large city. Bangalore is about a fourth of our business, very large. We are the largest market share leader. We are growing our market share. It is the most competitive grocery city in the country with all modern trade, all quick commerce, all B2B. And I think to me that's where the playbooks get validated.
Right. Break this into percentages. As a CEO, what percentage of you believes in gut and what percentage of you believes in data?
I think at Udaan, what I have done and what my belief obviously is, uh, I think it's always three things we take at Udaan to kind of try to make decisions, good decisions, or what I believe are good decisions. I think uh, we get always primary feedback from the customer or a user. For every large decision, will what our customers saying. Primary, that person or that executive who has to make the decision, has he gone and talked to sort of customers on ground and gotten primary, or salespeople, or delivery boys, or vendors, or anybody. There is a primary feedback. That's a question we ask when we are taking some of the larger decision, and it kind of flows through as a way of doing things. Second is we look at data very objectively. We have spent a lot of time, and e-commerce tends to be a inherent advantage of an e-com company is you're working with data almost always, right? You know every single click, every single transaction. So what is data showing us? What is data showing us in many ways we look at. And third, which we do at Udaan, is who are the people at Udaan who over periods of time have demonstrated and expertise in that area, that problem, who have over a period of time shown good results consistently over a period of time. Not everybody. If it is credit, it'll probably be Chaitanya or maybe Abhilash, because we believe that these two gentlemen over long periods of time, or Vigi, have shown on the topic of trade credit rightful decisions. So their expertise is validated and is long. So we bring them into the conversation. So I think a combination of these three we go with. Now there are times where you would lean in more towards one of those three, but I think all three needs to be there into the system. I think we have seen that the more we have all three, we tend to take more right answers than wrong. We still get some wrong answer, but we tend to take more right answer than wrong.
Got it. Got it. Uh, when you guys started, Udaan was the fastest to become a unicorn. Uh, it was it was the darling of both the investors and the media. But both these categories of people are very disloyal in nature. So, and when they woo you like crazy when the euphoria is there, and when the chips are down, they dump you uh, like as if you don't even matter today. That you went through a similar trajectory, and did that teach you a lot about the investor and the media per se?
I'll tell you what changed for me, what has my evolution. When I started Udaan, coming from a Flipkart stint, when I started Udaan, and the first 2-3 years of Udaan, we saw that success. I think the inherent belief in my head, I think more than Sujit's head as well, was that because we wanted to build something very large, and I think our inherent belief at that time or unsaid conviction was to make something very large. The strategy is to become large very quickly and keep becoming large and large and large, and over time sort of you will become very large.
Correct.
Like that kind of is the a little bit of that kind of the internet startups pattern. And it is true, by the way, in many sense, right? uh, that was our thinking. But I think for post COVID, and as we've gone deeper into what this business requires, I think that strategy is relevant for certain businesses even today. Uh, but for this business, what was clear to me is if you want to be very large, if you want to be $100 billion, if you want to be a 100-year-old company, the only way to become that very large is quality. Can you build quality? If you can build quality and scale quality, that is the only thing which can scale to become very, very large. So you can become $1 billion scale without quality, but you cannot become $100 billion scale without quality. So to me, that big transition happened from kind of chasing scale to chasing quality, which then went into details and discipline and playbooks and focus and choices and people, right? I think that change happened. Now, to me, I think that investors and stakeholders, media and others, uh, they also evolve. I think entrepreneurs in India are evolving. I think we're probably in the third generation of kind of startup in the country. Like the first one happened, and then the second one happened, now the third one. I think entrepreneurs, VCs, stakeholders evolve as a startup ecosystem evolves through its phases. My sense is that the more, I think that the most important thing is, do you believe as a founder, as a founding team, that there is a business? Do you believe you can actually create profit? Do you believe it will get large?
Right.
And once you do that, yes, you need to then have supporting investors. I think companies do die without supporting investors. I think we've been lucky with some core investors, Lightspeed, MNG. Uh, they believe as well with us. So I think those matters.
So do you think that scale solves for all, forgives all sins? Is that one of the biggest startup myths, and is that complete bullshit, or do you think otherwise?
I think it's a good question. My sense is that I think there is a balanced answer. I believe that initially for a startup, capital and scale is important because you are trying to do things, you're trying to introduce new products and services, you are learning. You need to have that kind of timeline to make mistake, learn, and adjust from that. And I think the capital and scale both kind of helps you. Like scale helps you sort of learn more about the product and the service, and capital helps you that time to make mistakes. But I think uh, just just going back to the question you had asked earlier about kind of the org structure change, I think they're kind of related.
Correct.
If you scale too much without really finding that core business model of yours, uh, I think capital and scale is needed to get to that stage. But if you kind of scale too much in the sense that let me just capture the market first and I will figure the business model later, I think that thesis
Is wrong.
is wrong. You need a capital scale cushion to actually get to a business model.
Right.
But kind of if you say, I'm just going to scale the market first, and I think that has downside. That's capitally inefficient.
Right. Right. You mentioned about the opportunity. Uh, can you quantify Udaan's opportunity in the future? Can it become a? Is there a size or opportunity that you can quantify? So, is there a $50 billion opportunity? Is it $100 billion opportunity that lies ahead of Udaan? So, what you achieve is something different, but what is that opportunity out there?
Absolutely. Udaan is, as a company, is focused on mass grocery of India, right? Imagine households in India today, which are like making less than 10 to 15 lakh annual income. That's about 95% of Indian households, right? Mass grocery in India today, with different sort of estimates, is about 600 to 700 billion dollar of market. In the next 10 years, it's going to be about $1.5 trillion market with the growth of the country, right? Mass grocery space in India is massively unorganized. It's led by kiranas, but if you go back into the value chains, it has wholesalers, brokers, agents, millers, farmers, right? Udaan is about sort of solving the mass grocery of India for future. We believe it's the largest market. We are the largest company in the largest market in the country with a profitable business model. So Udaan's endeavor, all the business opportunities, business model we try are focused on mass grocery space in India. And I believe that's a space which can only be won on people who can solve for cost and value, because you're solving for very low price points at kind of competitively advantaged costs. And today, Udaan is far ahead of any existing modern trade player or new generation player in solving for those problems.
Right. If you have to rattle out touch points that Udaan can touch in a retailer, wholesaler, supplier, manufacturer's life, what would that entire life cycle of touch points be?
I did not understand that question.
So for example, credit is one touch point, logistics is one touch point, price getting a fair price point is one touch point, procurement is one more touch point. So if there are these touch points in a retailer to suppliers life cycle, so whoever your customer, what are the different touch points? Because those touch points cumulatively will create that market for you.
So, there are many, because whenever we say unorganized, these numbers are large, right? We have 100 million farmers in this country. We have at least 4 to 5 millions wholesalers, brokers, agents in the country. We have 15, 20 million retailers in the country. Now, Udaan is going after into the trade landscape. And I think, to me, while we talk about unorganized, right, and obviously we're going into that and sort of trying to organize that trade part, a big opportunity comes from, unbranded, like mass grocery of the country, right? They do not buy India Gate basmati rice, or they will not buy Tata Sampann tur dal, or you won't buy a 200 ml bottle of Head and Shoulders. They'll buy 1 rupee Clinic Plus shampoo sachet. That's the largest selling SKU in Bangalore, FMCG, or all over India. These are 1
All
rupee
over
price
India.
points, 2 rupee
Same.
price points, 5 rupees price points.
Same, doesn't
Loose
change.
staples. They'll walk in and say, give me 1 kg 55 rupees wala rice. Right? जो हमने पिछली बार, give me raw rice, give me.
Correct.
So, to me, this is massively unbranded segment. Now, once you have gotten the demand and supply on your platform, right? One of the, like in Bangalore, about 30% of our staples business is now private brands, right? Which is Udaan's brands. Because now we are going and saying, okay, how I can solve for a 50 rupee kg rice and still create a brand at that price point. Most FMCG companies in India have struggled to make brands in food segment. Like, there are very few brands
Very
in
few
food.
of them.
You see a lot of brands in the personal care, shampoo, detergent, laundry, but you see very little in the food space, right? Because price points of Indian consumption are low. How do you actually build brands at that level when the price points are low, margins are low, and logistics costs are high? But Udaan has cracked that. So to me, I think our touch points will continue to increase as we are going, but it's a fairly, EP2B is a far more, at one level, uh, uh, complex e-commerce system than kind of the B2C, because you sort of are working with unbranded and you're working with large varieties of shopkeepers.
After you became the CEO, have you become calmer, or have you become lonelier, or both?
I think definitely not lonelier. I think calmer is less about the CEO piece. I think it's more about
Age?
yes. I was just saying, like, kind of, it's a little bit more about kind of, you know that you start getting to a place where you start realizing you don't know everything.
Correct.
I mean, neither you're going to be right every point of time, right? And what matters most is sort of kind of not having the pride of your answers, having the right
Correct.
answer. So I think you kind of grow up into that.
Correct.
I think for me, some of that, there was obviously a step change with the CEO role. I think because we transitioned late, and I think it's like, I've not talked about this to others, it hasn't come up. Because we transitioned late, none of me, Amod, or Sujit were prepared to be a CEO of that large company. Like, if you were a CEO early and you transition with the grow with the company, you're able to grow. But you suddenly become a CEO of a very sort of large setup without having grown with the company, which other entrepreneurs get to. I think that was a little bit of an abrupt shift,
Jump.
but I think it's less related to CEO.
If there is a 24-year-old who has 1 crore rupee in capital, if they have to build in the e-commerce, whether it's B2C or B2B, what are the things that you would suggest him to do? Like, are there sectors, are there areas, are there verticals that 24-year-old with a 1 crore rupee capital can explore?
I think two potential ideas.
Okay.
I think one is on the discretionary side. Discretionary categories still have that huge internet benefit of large range, right? And I think there are a lot of problem spaces in India which are still to be addressed for. And those are the ones where you can leverage the technology. It gives you an additional edge. And um, and capital doesn't matter that much. Like your insight about, I believe there are these new gen, 25 years old, behaving very differently in, say, tier 2 markets than what they're doing in metros. And those guys are looking for certain types of products which are not available to them. I'm going to market to them. With low amount of capital, you can actually scale that business with clear insights about what type of, in the context of e-commerce. I think on the grocery side, grocery is generally a scale game. So it tends to have capital and scale involved with that. So you will always be competing with some of the large players. But if somebody is interested in grocery, I think they need to go into more sort of consumer trends around, let's say, processed food, especially health, protein. These things are strong trends right now. Can you make protein packaged products more affordable for somebody as a household whose income is less? Like right now, these are fairly expensive products. So to me, but there is a consumer need around that. So I think those are the products and trends which can again work on a low amount of capital.
Interesting. Great. Thank you so much. That was my last question. We'll take a couple of quick still pictures, and that's about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
talking
much.
to you.
Lovely talking to you.
Yep.